Ever thought about making a podcast? Well, Anchor is the easiest and simplest way to do so. Let me explain. For starters, it's free. There's also creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone, laptop, or computer. Anchor will also distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on multiple platforms such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcasts, and much, much more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need in a podcast in one place. So give it a try. Hello, everyone. This is Those Film Nerds. We just decided to start a podcast in light of everything going on. My co-host is with me today, Sam Dierberger. Sam, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you, Will?
As good as I can be. We're hanging in there in light of everything going on. But yeah,
it's a strange time.
It is. And we decided to, or we started talking about doing a podcast, just kind of kicking the can, maybe October, November, and it's May now.
Yes.
Where we were just
it's been in the works for a while.
Yeah, and then I texted you maybe 2 weeks ago and was like, "Hey, you want to do this?" And here we are.
Yes, desperate for human activity.
Desperate for something to do. We're bored. We thought, why not?
Yes.
So just some things we want to do on this podcast is, in case you were wondering, this is a movie podcast. If anyone knows us, you know that we're big movie guys. Thus our podcast title and name. So if you're into movies, this is the place to be. We annoy people around us by talking about movies in school for sure. So we figured, hey, let's start this so we can talk elsewhere in a safe environment.
Or we won't be persecuted for our beliefs or whatever.
Or we won't be judged.
I should say the title of the podcast was probably inspired by our good friend Michael, who has called us that numerous times.
That
derogatorily.
That he has. So we kind of want to do a couple different things today and in future episodes. Maybe we'll do reviews or how movies are made or different aspects of how a movie's made. People in movies such as directors or cinematographers or actors even or anything like that. But today I think Sam, you kind of have an idea of what you want today to look like. And I like that idea when we talked just right before this.
Yeah, so I thought we should just start by introducing ourselves and kind of talk about how we got into movies, what we love about movies, and what we look for loving a movie, I guess.
What we look for in a good movie, yeah.
Why we like them, and then maybe delve into our top 10 a little bit and try to get anyone who's listening. We're very grateful if you are. anyone who's listening, kind of, so they can get an idea of where we come from cinema wise and what we love.
Absolutely. So I think that first thing you kind of said is just an introduction. So I'm Will Spalding. We're both seniors this year, so we're about to graduate, and we're hoping maybe we can continue this podcast even after that. But I think my first exposure to movies, I mean, as a kid, I was never like a huge. I watched movies, but not religiously or anything like that. And then maybe by the time freshman year, Sam, you might have been a little bit before me, before you got onto the movie binge. But I think my parents were always big movie fans. And then by the time ninth grade year rolled around, they were finally able to show me movies that they grew up watching or that they liked that were obviously not appropriate for children. So that's kind of when I got into movies, is my family and I would watch a movie every night. So that kind of got me into it.
Yes. And that's such an interesting way to go about it, and really inspiring when you have any kind of parental figure or authority figure in your life being like, watch this, it might be life changing or something.
Exactly.
For me, it was I was probably 8th or 9th grade, probably around the same time.
Okay.
And I was just kind of bored with what I was doing. You know, I had read all the books I kind of wanted to read. I was big into reading as a child.
As was I. Not anymore, but
yeah, I don't read nearly enough anymore. But I wanted a new way to look at stories and really appreciate stories, because as a kid, when you're growing up, your exposure to movies are,
The Lion King.
Yes, The Lion King, or Pixar, which Pixar obviously the best. We'll get to this later, but obviously Pixar is the best in the kids' movies. Hands down. It's really not close. So, but your exposure to movies is something of we'll go see a movie at the movie theater, some PG.
Once every 2 months.
Once every 2 months. You walk out and you're like, naturally, because, you don't go to the theater a lot. You're like, oh, wow, that was really good.
That was awesome.
No matter how terrible the movie was, it could be absolute garbage. But you're just enamored by the experience.
Yeah.
So you're like, why don't I kind of decide, why don't I do this on a regular basis? Why don't I start, seeing some of the classics that everyone says are really incredible? And I guess bringing yourself up into a new way of thinking, new way of experiencing.
Absolutely. So the next kind of want to go into, so that's kind of just how we got into movies. But I kind of want to go into where we're at with movies right now. Just a little bit a little bit more background, I guess, between the two of us. This year, Sam and I started our film club in our school, which sadly got cut short. No fault of anyone, but it's kind of hard to do a school activity when there's no school, believe it or not.
Yes.
But I believe I think we had a dozen plus meetings this year where we just watch a movie and then discuss it for a bit. It was a ton of fun. I'm glad we got to do that. It was an interesting learning curve, and I'm definitely glad that I can say that we did that.
Right. Yes. And it was fun to see people, because we got a lot of people who wanted to get into movies but hadn't really seen anything that really made them think yet, as in terms of cinema.
Absolutely.
So that was really fun. That was really fun to show them some movies that we loved, and then seeing their faces light up and everything. So
For sure.
It's kind of fun. Even if you're listening to the show, it's, it'd be really fun if you're, really inexperienced with movies or just haven't seen a lot to kind of listen to the show and get that same kind of feeling. Because I think we're not good at a lot of things, but we are good at that. I mean, giving recommendations.
Yeah, like that's always something that, people ask me. I'm sure people ask you too. Like, what movie should I watch? I never know what movie to watch, and that's my problem. And I kind of always have first of all, I always ask them what genre do you want to watch? Because I can't just recommend you a movie. You'll be like, that's boring. But I always kind of, once I ask them what genre do you watch or what want to watch, I kind of always have 3 or 4 in the back of my head where I'll tell them to watch that movie.
Right.
And typically those recommendations that I'm sure that you give and certainly that I give are not movies that they would have seen. Like if you ask for a comedy, I'm not going to recommend you Anchorman or anything like that. I'm going to tell you to watch something that's, older or less known, or maybe like an indie movie comedy or something like that.
Yeah. Just
to get more people exposed to certain types of movies, really.
Right. And that is the thing, and we do talk about this a lot, is people have started to associate going to the movies with seeing some, the next dumb Will Ferrell movie or whatever.
Well, that's just the thing. I think the average
not ripping on Will Ferrell.
he's a funny man half the time. I think not including this year, because this year's weird because we can't go to the movies. But I think last year, the average American would go see 4 movies a year, and 3 or 4 of them would be something to do with Disney, either Marvel or or a Disney animated or something, Star Wars or something like that. Which is a shame, really. If you see 4 movies a year and those are the 4, you're only really getting one voice in your media consumption. So that's why I kind of always, and I'm sure you do too, recommend movies that most people wouldn't normally see.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say there is a great sense of pride whenever, the next Marvel movie comes out every 3 months. I steadfastly refuse to watch Marvel movies, but there is a great sense of pride when there's a new Marvel movie out and you're like, you know what? The theater's all everyone's crowding into the big theater. I'm like, I'm going to go see Chap to the theater down the hall or whatever. I love that feeling.
That's funny.
It's one of my favorite feelings. You feel like such a rebel, even though you don't do anything.
When Marvel sucks the box office life and they get 98% of the dollars of a weekend or something, and Sam's he's down the hall. I like to think I'm a good blend of we'll say artistic movies versus blockbusters.
Yes.
I like blockbusters.
You'll sit through anything.
I will. Which I think is, both good and bad, because then I do watch some bad blockbusters and I'm like, oh no, this is terrible. Not going to name any names, but
yes.
There are some that are rough. All right, so let's go into what makes a good movie.
Okay.
I'll let you start.
Okay. Well, now this is interesting. So now we're going to have to go into Letterboxd, because I feel like Letterboxd has become an integral piece of how we communicate about cinema. So,
and whoever doesn't know, Letterboxd is just basically it's described as a social media app for film lovers, and it's just letter as in letter, and then box as in box, and then D at the end. So LETTERBOXD.com, and it's just, you can just review films and so forth. Anyway, continue.
Yeah, it's it's a great amount of fun.
Yes.
Even if even if you're watching a new movie every once a month, maybe it's worthwhile, because
absolutely
you can see what your friends are saying about certain movies. You can, it's an endless array. You mentioned earlier about never knowing what movie to watch. I always turn to Letterboxd if I need a. Yeah, you can always find a good recommendation on Letterboxd.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, oh, my friend loved that movie. So we started on that. It's an app and a website. We started on that website about a year and some months ago.
Year and change, for sure. You were a little bit before me.
What I started doing on and change. Yeah. But I started on there and I was like, how am I going to rate movies? Because on the app, you rate movies out of 5 stars.
And you can do half stars as well.
With half stars. With half stars. That's important. But my problem always is after I finish a movie, I can't be decisive enough to say, you know what, that was a 3 out of 5. That was a 3-star movie. I can't do that decisively, because it'll haunt me. It'll be like, yeah, but that was really good, but that was really bad. And
it's hard for me too. It is hard. I know what you're saying, and you're more sophisticated than I am. I kind of go with a gut feeling with a little bit of thought, I like to think, but you're more sophisticated. So I'm curious to say what you'll have to say here, or curious to hear what you'll have to say.
So what I did was I made the blame for my taste in movies, because there's always some kind of blame from others that come, like, how could you say that movie is only 3.5 stars out of 5 or whatever?
Yeah.
I developed this scale where I have just basically a bunch of categories, from dialogue to characters to plot to acting, technical direction, cinematography, all that. I kind of have this pretty complex formula that I kind of punch into a calculator. I give each category a hard rating out of 10, and then eventually that calculates out a percent. Every half star accounts for 10%. So if you get the example I have on my Letterboxd page, which is weird, but
it's 3 billboards, isn't it?
Example, three billboards outside of Ebbing, Missouri,
Yeah. Okay.
is a 3.5 out of 5 star movie. And I consider that, I'm kind of a harsh critic. So I think, 3.5 stars is still a pretty good movie.
Yeah,
pretty good
absolutely.
film. So 3.5 out of 5, that's in the 70s%,
Yeah. I just recently saw you reviewed Call Me by Your Name, which I love, but it was like a 78 or 75 or something like that.
That's right.
And that will earn a 3.5.
Right in there. And that's what I had to give it, So even if I'm tempted to be like, oh, but Timothy was so good in it.
Chalamet's just so attractive. I have to give it a 4, right?
Yes, I resist that temptation.
Yeah.
By just giving it a percentage and be like, all right, that's what the scale decided. It gives you a nice illusion.
Yours is nice and easy like that. I think my biggest issue is I've tried to make a scale like you, and then I have a bigger issue because instead of making one decision 1 to 5, I have to make like 15 1 to 5s, and then I'm just like my head's in another planet, and then it'll explode, and then I just like, okay, I'll just do 1.
Yeah, you just gotta punch in a number and just keep going.
Yeah.
Don't think about it anymore.
Yeah.
But
then I'll go back to it and change it. Then I'll kick myself, and then I'll change it again. Yeah. It's a mess.
And by the way, we should mention that happens a lot. You really think on a movie.
Absolutely.
You're like,
time.
You know what? This is my discretion. I'm changing this.
Yeah, exactly. Hindsight is 20/20. So as soon as you if you have even a day more to think about a movie, and you're like, you know what, the themes or whatever, they actually were really good. It does deserve an extra half star. Or sometimes I'm like, actually, now that I think about it, that was terrible, and then you knock it down a half star.
Yes, exactly. So I know you already touched on it, but what about yours? What do you look for in movies?
So that's a good question, and I think that's a little different than like how do we rate it versus what do you look for. I'm a visual person, so I definitely see the cinematography aspects, and the camera work is really key to me. Yeah. But more than that, I don't really pick up all too often, which is maybe this is just me being stupid, but I don't pick up directorial things all too often. Like if something's really good, I can notice, or if something's like really bad, I notice it. But like if it's in the middle, I don't notice it often. Again, maybe that's just me being dumb, but I notice the cinematography a lot, and I notice script. Script is huge for me. If it's a bad script, or if the pacing is bad in the script, then it's so noticeable, and it hurts. But if you have a good paced movie, 9 out of 10 times you'll have a good movie. Actually it's probably 9 out of 10 times you'll have a good movie. Sometimes you'll just mess, but a well-paced movie is key. Otherwise, if it's way too slow, then it's so hard to attach onto a movie, and if it's way too fast, then you can never pick up what's happening. So it has to be right in the middle.
Right. And that, the directorial things that we both really can't pick up on, we should mention, we're not in film school or anything like that.
Yeah, of course.
We know pretty much next to nothing about cinematography or how looking into intricacies of, how did they shoot this? What kind of shot is that? Like we don't know those things. We just, it's one of those gut feelings where you look at a movie and you're like, okay, this cinematography is very good.
Yes.
Like it's obvious they care.
You can note, like when you watch enough movies as we do, you'll notice like that was a really good shot, or that was a good angle, or something like that.
Yeah.
But if something's in the middle, it's hard to pick up on. That's why I always say it's the toughest to review or talk about like a 2.5 or a 3-star movie, because it's just average. Like it's not much to bag on, or it's not much to rip on, but it's also not much where you can really like say this was great, this was awesome. It's more just in the middle, and you just have to. That's the toughest ones to talk about, I think.
Exactly.
Where it just doesn't do anything special, or it doesn't do anything horrible.
Yes, because I would say we're both very script focused. Like we both, more than anything, we appreciate really good writing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really good pacing. So that's what we're interested in. And that probably says a lot about the kind of movies we like.
Yeah. I will agree with you there.
Yes. So with that, I suppose we should probably talk about what movies we love.
Sure.
What movies mean a lot to us. So both of us on Letterboxd.com, you can make lists of just,
which is one of the best features, to be honest.
It's fantastic. You can rank things. You can
so helpful.
Yeah, it's so much fun. And by the way, if anyone's listening and you're on Letterboxd or you want to get on Letterboxd, certainly shoot both of us a follow. We'll follow back for a listener. I think Will follows back regardless.
I kind of stopped.
If you're a listener, we'll follow you back.
Some people follow like 10,000 people, and I'm like, okay, you're just following me just because you saw my name. Then I don't follow them. But
that's how I feel. And if your taste in cinema is garbage,
some people I've unfollowed because they're like 5 stars, and I'm like, oh no.
Like if you're giving Avengers: Infinity War 5 stars, then I'm like, no, I'm not gonna follow.
No, sorry. Yeah.
But even if just like leave a comment and say like, I'm a listener to your podcast, and I'll be like, okay, I'll follow you, even if you think like,
which is fine. Like if you love Avengers: Infinity War, that's great. I'm glad there's something for you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's something. At least you're doing something.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But we're hoping.
So anyway,
we're hoping that we can give you a recommendation that might be out of your comfort zone as well. Anyway, continue, Sam.
But yeah. So the reason. Okay, yeah, we should mention our Letterboxd usernames.
So I was thinking, let's do that at the end.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, so let's just go through the top 10, or what do you want to do?
I think we should. Yeah, I think we should go through our top 10.
Give a few honorable mentions, maybe, or.
Yes, okay. for sure.
I'll let you go first. Excuse me.
Yeah, we can go
every other.
Just like bounce back and forth.
Okay.
We'll talk about our honorable mentions, so we can go down the list. I guess with a little more, so we can talk about the things we chose, because it's important to face some kind of scrutiny, I guess. Like, just don't blindly say, I love this movie. It's perfect.
See, that's my thing too. If you really love a movie and like it's a 5-star for you and it's kind of a hot take, like as long as you give a review saying why, I'll be okay with it. For the most part.
A certain person named Josh who gave Little Women like a 1.5 stars.
The movie is objectively not a 1.5 stars, like
with like no explanation. Like you can argue that point, but you got to argue it.
Yeah, you have to argue it. You can't just be like, it's a 1.5 stars, and I'll be like, why?
Yeah, you can't do that. So that's important to us. Depth, at least giving a little explanation why it means a lot to you, or lack thereof, or if it is terrible.
Yeah.
Why? So yeah, I guess we'll just talk over some honorable mentions here for our top 10 lists.
Yeah. So let's do, you go over your honorable mentions, I'll go over mine, and then we'll start at 10, 9, or 10, your 10, my 10, your 10, or my 9, your 9, and so forth.
Yes. So I suppose that my honorable mentions would have to be some films that previously occupied my top 10, which I haven't downgraded, but more that I've seen better movies that are like, oh, I need to put this in my top 10 now. So some of the ones that used to be in my top 10 that still I love very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Casablanca.
Such a good movie.
Absolutely. Just, I couldn't believe how much I liked that movie at the beginning, because when I first saw it,
that I've thought a lot, and like that's one, probably like objectively one of the, maybe the best movie I've ever seen.
Yes, it's so beautiful.
Yeah, continue.
It's so beautiful. from start to finish. And we should say that that we're going to try to avoid spoilers.
Well, yeah, we'll just kind of, for the honorable mentions, let's kind of go through them quick.
Yeah.
But top 10, we'll just give like a brief, like 15-second, here's why it's good.
Yes. Okay. So other movies that used to occupy my top 10, Taxi Driver, I think it is Martin Scorsese's masterpiece. It's kind of bounced around for me on every rewatch. I've probably rewatched it 3 or 4 times now. But I do think it's Scorsese's best. Absolutely.
In my opinion as well.
Yeah. Barton Fink. I'm a huge Coen Brothers fan.
So good.
And The Usual Suspects has always been a real favorite of mine.
Absolutely.
As well as On the Waterfront, Brando, just brilliant.
I mean, is Brando the best actor of all time?
Objectively, I would have to say no.
Okay.
I'm really starting to consider Philip Seymour Hoffman might be
Hoffman.
Just
I mean,
in terms of sheer acting ability,
he's so rangy and he's great. Obviously,
so versatile.
Yes,
so versatile. As well as Gary Oldman. Gary Oldman is my sleeper pick.
I mean, there's a few like naturally great actors. I mean, we probably list. I mean, like someone like Christian Bale as well, but
yes,
there's a few that are just naturally. I don't know. Maybe they're naturally gifted, or maybe they work a lot. But there's a few that you just can't ignore are some of the greats.
Yes, 100%. So I think that's all mine for what I would say honorable mention.
All right, your honorable. Okay, I'll go through mine. So I have 18 5-stars. So I'll just obviously 10 of which are in my top 10. So I'll just go through the remaining 8 just quickly. So The Best Years of Our Lives. It's from a long time ago, 1947. Which maybe the controversial pick for Best Picture in 1947 when it beat It's a Wonderful Life, because maybe It's a Wonderful Life has had more of an impact.
Yeah.
But The Best Years of Our Lives, Leon the Professional, one of Natalie Portman's first films, and she'll reappear on my honorable mentions list as well. In fact, we'll just go to that now. Black Swan from 2010.
Yes.
Did you just see that recently?
I recently saw that 2 weeks ago or so.
And I'm higher on it than you are, but
yes, her performance was wonderful.
And Darren Aronofsky is quite good.
Yes.
American Beauty. This was in my top 10, but then I realized I was stupid, and I still have it on a 5-star. But I do love that movie. Kevin Spacey.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate.
Kevin Spacey, man. I was coincidentally I was discussing this with someone last weekend. We were talking about Kevin Spacey and his fall from grace and whatnot, and I'm like, I made the argument. I'm like, if you watch House of Cards, or if you watch Seven, or if you watch The Usual Suspects, his fall from grace almost adds to those characters, because it's almost like, oh my God, he did these things.
Yeah, and even American Beauty a little bit too.
He's so believable. Yes, American
He's
Beauty
totally
too.
Kaiser Sose,
He's suddenly so believable as Kaiser Soze, or John Doe, or
absolutely 100%.
Frank, what's his name? Yeah. So
continuing, Fight Club by David Fincher. Not my favorite Fincher movie. We'll get to that in a little bit, but
yes,
Fight Club's great. Another one, a couple more recent here. Lady Bird from just a few years ago with the ever wonderful Saoirse Ronan, whom I wish would respond to my fan mail. But anyway,
Saoirse Ronan,
and we'll talk about her sometime.
Yeah.
Whiplash by the up and coming director Damien Chazelle. Not sure if you're aware of who that man is, but check his work out. He's great. Whiplash. And I think that's all I have. for honorable mentions. Oh, one more, excuse me. One that came out just last year. And you also just saw this recently.
Yes.
Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Yes, we have differences on that one too.
We do, yes. I have a better understanding of how 1917 was filmed than how that movie was filmed. It just blows my mind how great that movie is. So we're just going to go to a quick break and resume shortly. So thank you for watching. We'll be right back. And we're back. Welcome back, everyone. So just kind of transitioning from where we were before, from honorable mentions, just outside of our top 10 list, and we're just going to kind of work our way right into our top 10 right now. So, Sam, I'll let you go at number 10 right now, and then I'll pick it up at 10, and then you'll go 9, then I'll go 9, and so on and so forth.
Yes, wonderful. So my number 10 is a kind of a humorous pick more than anything. It's something I love too much that I have to keep it in there. Yeah. You know, I don't think it's like the 10th greatest movie I've ever seen, but I love it too much. And, you know, a top 10 list is really more of like, you know, something that a reflection of you.
Well, and it can be opinionated and.
Yeah, it's like an art piece, you know. It's like what 10 movies really define you.
Yeah.
So mine is obviously The Big Lebowski, because it really ties the list together.
It really ties the list together.
It's kind of my joke. It's kind of my joke. Directed by Joel Cohen. Technically, interesting factoid. The writing and directing union in Hollywood throughout the 90s dictated that you couldn't have two people credited as a director. So Joel is technically the director, and then Ethan is technically the producer.
But they did both. Each of them did both.
You know, they write everything together. They edit everything together.
Well, no, Roderick James does that.
Roderick James does that. We forgot that. But they used to do some editing together. But now Roderick handles all of it.
That's a joke for like two people. Yeah. And it's probably us too.
If you get into the Coens, which they are far and away my favorite directors,
they're up there for me. They are up there for me.
Yeah, we're both big fans of the Coens.
Yeah,
and you know, they're such whole filmmakers. You know, they write everything.
Yeah,
they direct everything. They produce everything. Which is,
I mean, I wish it was like that for every director. To be honest.
Yes. They're auteurs. We're big on the term auteurs.
Auteurs, for sure.
Someone who writes and directs their own movies.
Yeah.
You know, not a for-hire director. Every project for an auteur is a passion project.
Yeah.
So that's what you know, primarily I love about the Coens. But The Big Lebowski is such the best, you know, straightforward comedy I've ever seen. Although, you know, the movie itself is not very straightforward. If you haven't seen this yet,
The Big Lebowski is my favorite comedy of all time.
Yes, it is so just bizarre.
It's absurdly weird, but it works so well for what it is, and it's so off the wall. But
yes, and it doesn't shy away from what it is.
Absolutely.
Like at no point in the movie is there a character where it's like, oh my God, this is weird or something. Like they just double down on.
They just roll with it too. Yeah. Okay.
You know, there's not one normal character, so it's brilliant film.
My number 10 is a bit unorthodox for me personally, and I kind of have reserve the right to exchange my number 10 spot for whatever other 5-star with the other previous 8 that I just mentioned that I am most obsessed with at the moment. So right now, and typically, sitting at that number 10 spot for me right now is City of God. Based in Rio de Janeiro, nicknamed the City of God, a boy basically just grows up in the hardships that go along with that in the 1970s and 80s in Rio, where gang violence was at an all-time high. And it's interesting because I am not religious. So it's interesting that this movie ranks so high on my list, but I think it's such a perfect movie for me. I I mean, it's easily my favorite coming of age story because that's really what it is ultimately. But it's just handled with such care that it earns the number 10 spot.
Yes. And there was a time for a while where you had your number 10 spot just be, your most recent 4.5 stars that you're obsessed with or something like that.
Yeah, and it's kind of altered a little bit, but
it's altered a little bit. So City of God is there to stay for a while.
Right now, yes. If another 5-star pops up where I'm like obsessed with it at that moment, then it'll sneak its way on. But City of God at the moment, yep. So what's your number 9?
So my number 9 is actually also likes to change a lot,
yep.
And that's not on purpose. I'm just like, Lebowski has to stay at 10 because it ties the list together. It's all about the placement of the posters or whatever. But currently my number 9, and I didn't do this lightly, but Synecdoche, New York is once you get onto the Letterboxd community is a real staple of things people like on Letterboxd. People who are amateur film critics love this movie, as do I, but I don't love it. It's not like Lebowski where I watch it and I'm like, that was so good.
It's weird for me too. I have Synecdoche, New York at a 4.5 stars, and I hate that movie.
Yes. It's not a pleasure to watch.
No, I've seen it twice. I never want to see it again.
I saw it 3 times in 1 year.
Oh my gosh.
Which is too much.
You're a soldier for that.
Which is too much, but it's such a I won't say love because I don't love it, but what I respect about the movie is how brutally honest it is about the absurd symbols it uses in the movie. It's really surreal. It uses all this bizarre imagery, and it's not a straightforward drama. I thought it would be. If you just read the premise of the film, it's pretty simple, really. Like this straightforward drama.
Yeah, I think the premise is like 1 or 2 sentences.
Yeah. A theater director struggles with his work and the women in his life as he attempts to create a life-size replica of New York inside a warehouse.
Is that it?
As a part of his new play.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
So essentially he's given a grant?
Yes. That's the idea. Yes. And we should mention Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Well, he's wonderful. He's wonderful.
Just a flawless performance. And he just, the movie is so honest about what it is, and it's just endlessly complicated and deep, and you can derive something new out of every watch.
Absolutely.
And every shot in that movie has some kind of meaning.
Yeah,
everything is
so meticulous.
I just have to respect it.
Yeah, and I do too. I just don't like watching it, which is fine. Yeah. All right, so my number 9 spot. It's The Silence of the Lambs. We all know the drama, thriller, horror from 1991. That is The Silence of the Lambs.
Yes.
And it, even if you haven't seen it, I am like 100% sure you have heard a quote from it and you know it. And you just... You're not sure what it's from, but your dad says it.
Yes.
It's so good.
Yes.
I think is Hannibal Lecter, portrayed by the ever wonderful Anthony Hopkins, is just so electric and different. Like that character is so odd and horrifying and frightening. But it's just so good. And there's a twist at the. I think do you have it at like a 3.5 star or something like that?
Something like that. I mean, it's it didn't I don't think it aged particularly well.
That's
a lot
fair.
of the Buffalo Bill stuff is very, very 90s.
Yeah,
for some reason.
that easily is not. That's the worst part of the movie, and I don't think it's bad, in my opinion, but it's easily the worst part.
Yeah.
So, I love this movie. So it earns my number 9 spot, and that's kind of been right on the edge. I've always thought about taking it out because it has its problems, but I just like it so much. Like Hannibal Lecter is just so good, and I wish there was like a weird like spinoff, and I know there is, but like I wish there was a good spinoff, not a bad one.
Yeah, and they recasted Jodie Foster. I think it was Hannibal, right? And
in 2010 or something. Like it was recent.
They had Julianne Moore play her, and I'm like, no, Jodie is so gorgeous in that movie. I'm blown away.
Because she's just as horrified by Hannibal Lecter / Anthony Hopkins as the viewer is.
Yes.
Yes.
She's so human.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so let's move on to your number 8.
My number 8 is obligatory. The first thing I did on Letterboxd.com when I started an account was
isn't this what everyone does?
Find this movie, give it 5 stars, and keep moving because it's just so unquestionably so good. The Godfather. Yeah. One. I know you prefer part 2.
I'm a part 2 guy.
It's a part 2 guy. For me, you can't replace Brando. Brando's performance is so subtle. Yes. It's so human. I am throwing this word around a lot, but he is so human in that movie.
Which is weird because he's just some larger-than-life mobster. But then at the end of the day, he just wants to like spend time with his kids and his grandkids, and
Yes. If you haven't seen it, I know it's long. It's about 3 hours.
It's just shy, I believe. So it's
just. It might be like 10 minutes shy.
Yeah.
I think.
I mean, it's definitely worth a watch.
But you 5 minutes shy, 175 minutes. So,
okay.
But you gotta watch this movie, and it's constantly engaging. It's constantly engaging. I think the closing scene is one of the greatest closing scenes of all time. It beautifully balances, your sense of duty with your family, your sense of duty with religion, with morality, and I love it.
Yeah.
I love it. So, what's your number 8?
My number 8 is a movie I've seen multiple times and probably will rewatch it twice a year for the rest of my life, and that's 12 Angry Men.
Yes.
Something so simple that it's just 12 jurors in a jury room for essentially an hour and 40 minutes. This is a relatively short watch as well, so check it out. But essentially they just talk about a crime that is all but solved. Someone is found guilty, and they're so guilty that it shouldn't even be a question. But juror number 8.
Good old juror number 7, yes. Is he 8?
Yeah, he's 8.
Okay, yeah. We
Juror,
used to know him off the top of our head.
I know. we gotta create that BuzzFeed quiz.
Oh, that's right.
So juror number 8 is, I believe, the greatest hero of all time, or close. And this is definitely the greatest comeback of all time. And I won't. It's hard to talk about this movie without spoiling it, but even though it's just 12 guys in a room for an hour and 37 minutes, which just sounds so boring, right? This is one of the most engaging movies of all time. It's so good and definitely worth a watch. So everyone should check that out. What's your number 7?
My number 7 is the next entry of Coen Brothers. Maybe my film taste isn't diverse enough, but I'm enamored by the Coen Brothers. No Country for Old Men is just a brilliant neo-Western movie. It's based for once the brothers didn't write this. It's not an original story. They wrote the screenplay, but the original story comes from a novel by Cormac McCarthy,
right.
which I still need to read because, God, I love this movie. But it's flawlessly shot, flawlessly made.
Yeah.
You know, the characters are so interesting, and you know, you really get a antagonist who just is unlike anything you've ever seen. Javier Bardem in this movie is kind of playing like,
well,
you know, he's not an alien, but he seems like an alien because the rules that garner him are not of this world.
I think, and Bardem to this day, when I think of a supporting actor, I think of Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. His character as Anton Chigurh is like, if Juror Number 8 is the best hero of all time, is Anton Chigurh the greatest villain of all time? Maybe not like Darth Vader or something, but like, he's so creepy and just has no remorse and lives by his own rules, and he'll do whatever it takes to like, what is it, like $2 million back?
$2 million. And the scary thing is he's, you know, we're used to antagonists who just believe in chaos and don't, you know, who don't believe in anything really. They're kind of nihilists. But this guy, he is principled. Like, he has principles.
Yeah, it's just
he's probably more principled than most of the so-called good guys in the movie. It's just that his principles are so
unlike ours. Exactly. It really is a masterpiece.
Yes.
So my number 7, or are you done? Sorry.
Number 7. No, so you're number 7. I was going to say.
My number 7 is by a director we both love, who didn't really have a lot of acclaim in his day, which is sad. But now he's one of the greats, and that is Psycho. My personal favorite Alfred Hitchcock movie. Possibly even more engaging than 12 Angry Men. This movie is so good, with a performance so ahead of its time of Anthony Perkins. He's phenomenal. He's great, and that character is so menacing and so weird. Because, you know, I can't say he's menacing really, because he's really just like a simple guy who is just kind of lost in the world, I guess, and
like just has an anxiety issue.
Yeah,
you know, like you watch him and you're like, oh my God, I feel like I'm having a conversation with Norman right now.
Yeah, his character, obviously Norman Bates, but and this is another movie that it's hard to talk about without spoiling. But obviously, everyone knows the shower scene. It revolutionized everything.
Yes,
like no one had seen blood in movies. No one had seen nudity in movies until Hitchcock decided to do this.
Yes.
So
it's so unflinching in its portrayal of a story.
So that's my number 7.
Along with the fact it's just an entertaining movie.
Yeah,
all around.
It's so good. It defies your expectations too. Something that you wouldn't have thought would happen definitely happens.
I think someone on Letterboxd said, and I think this is so accurate, is it was the first movie that taught him or her, I forgot who it was, but it was the first movie who taught them that black and white movies can be good by our modern sense.
Wow, they can be, because this proves it. So that's my number 7. What's your number 6?
My number 6 is the kind of, you know, just my favorite movie from childhood. The movie I've seen the most. I've probably seen this anywhere from 20 to 30 times over. Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, okay.
I love, you know, it. For me, it's the quintessential action movie that really hasn't even been perfected on even by today's standards, because, you know, today Marvel movies and other action movies, you have these invincible characters who just stand in for all that is right and all that is moral. And then you have a protagonist like Indiana Jones who doesn't quite know what motivates him, doesn't quite know what to believe in, but he's pursuing something mythical, and he does it for the archaeological significance. He doesn't do it for really any fortune or glory, as he would say in Temple of Doom. Yeah, he's just,
he's a teacher, really.
Yes. He's just interested in the historical significance.
Yeah.
Something that should be admired. And he's, you know, and he's human. He's not a great character to look up to. I mean, he's so cynical about everything.
Yeah. He's not a
kind
people
of
person.
Grouch.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's kind of a grouch, but he's also,
which is Harrison Ford in like every movie ever, by the way.
Right, which is Harrison Ford to be clear, but he's so, you can't help but like him. He's he's funny, he's witty.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of the best action movies of all time, for sure.
Yes. So I'm floored by Raiders of the Lost Ark every time I watch it.
So my number 6 is another Scorsese, which actually I believe to be his best. And I know you hate this movie. Maybe not hate, but you don't like it.
Do I hate it? What is it?
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas. Ah.
So
yes,
when Goodfellas part...
Yeah, it's one of the more overrated movies of all time.
When Goodfellas Part 2 came out this last year, a.k.a. The Irishman, I was so disappointed by it. I hate The Irishman, but I love Goodfellas.
And I love The Irishman.
I love Goodfellas. It has one of my favorite intros of all time. My favorite opening quote of all time. And Henry Hill is so entertaining, and this obviously is a true story, written by the real Henry Hill, and the cop that arrested him, which is also interesting.
Yeah.
But I just think it's like it started aside. No, that's not true because we had The Godfathers, but like this kind of started the new era gangster movie, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
Although I suppose maybe Godfather would still kind of be that, but
it's a different kind of gangster movie because it's not about. It's about loyalty, but it's more of like a friendship kind of loyalty.
Yeah.
It's less about family dynamics and what you owe to your family or your parents or any authority figure. It's more like you get close to these guys when you're extorting people together and
whacking people
bodies together. Yeah, it's you get close to these guys, and how far will that take you? For me. I think Goodfellas is, I understand the appeal. I think it's a little too comedic for my taste, but I definitely understand any praise it gets. It's not my cup of tea, but, good movie. Certainly a good movie by any objective measure.
Just maybe a bit overrated for you, which is fair.
Yes, yeah.
So let's hear your number 5.
My number 5 is... Amadeus, directed by Milos Forman. Absolutely, as you said, cleaned house at the 1985 Oscars.
It did clean house.
Just cleaned house. I love this movie. It's a brilliant. I gotta read you this little premise here, but the tagline for the film is "Everything you've heard is true," which is immediately alluring because it's like, well, what have I heard? I don't even know what I've heard yet.
Yeah.
I need to watch this movie now. And it's, the premise is the incredible story of genius musician Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, told in flashbacks by his peer and secret rival Antonio Salieri, now confined to an insane asylum. Oh my God. It's so well written. The characters are so interesting. And I know we talked about, we're not cinematography snobs by any stretch of the imagination, but the cinematography in this movie is incredible.
Well, and as you've mentioned before, it's so unique because this movie is 100% real lighting.
Yes.
Not artificial like a light or anything like that. It's all candlelight or sunlight, really.
Yes.
Which is even if you're not a film buff or a film nerd like we are, that's so darn impressive.
It's just staggering how they pulled that off.
Yeah.
I still don't understand how they pulled it off. And, the costumes, the performance by F. Murray Abraham as Antonio Salieri is brilliant. And it's just a brilliant story about genius and where it comes from. And, why some people are more gifted than others, even if they don't have the passion, and we should say it's based on like an urban Viennese legend. Like it's nothing in this is really substantiated, but nonetheless, it's just a fun movie. It's so fun to watch, even when you're talking about a 17th or 18th century composer. That's just brilliant.
So my number 5 is possibly got snubbed at the Oscars by another movie that also didn't win, which will also come up on my list. So two movies from the same year in my top 10, and that's 1994's The Shawshank Redemption. And I think The Shawshank Redemption is kind of the perfect combination of quality and entertainment. I bet if you asked 100 people what's your favorite movie of all time, and these people don't have to be big film watchers, but if you asked 100 people that, 20 of them might say it's The Shawshank Redemption, and that's kind of impressive because
Easily.
it's just because it's not an obscure movie, but it's from a while ago, and that many people would still say it's one of their favorite movies of all time, just because it blends the combination of entertainment and quality is just so remarkable. And Tim Robbins, I don't know how he didn't have a bigger career after this. I mean, he's in one of the greatest movies of all time, and this is number one on the IMDb top 250 as well. So even above The Godfather, which is remarkable. But just the relation between Robbins' character and Freeman's character is so fun to watch.
Oh yeah, and I just the great thing about Shawshank is that, excuse me, anytime you're in like some kind of cinema circle where people are talking movies, going back and forth, and
it comes up.
Obvious that they know and they've seen so many more than you, and they ask you, "What's your favorite movie?" You can just be like, "Oh, Shawshank." Just say Shawshank.
Just say Shawshank. Yeah.
It won't raise any eyebrows. Like no one will be like, "Oh, okay, you don't know anything." But at the same time, people will be like, "Well, that's a pretty common pick.
That's fair.
It's safe.
But it's fair.
Such a safe pick.
Yeah.
So as opposed to saying, "Oh, I love Forrest Gump" or something, and
that's the movie I was referring to. In case anyone didn't know, maybe we'll talk about Forrest Gump later. But let's hear your number 4.
Yeah. My number 4 is very near and dear to my heart, and it is the third Coen Brothers entry on this list. Yes,
or the first, maybe, depending on how you look at it, because it's your highest.
Well, yes, depending on how you look at it, but it is the Coen Brothers' best movie. It is their most underrated movie, possibly one of the most underrated movies of all time. It's a movie called A Serious Man, and the reason I love this movie is it's all about why bad things happen to good people, why you work so hard, you try to do things right, you have a good heart, and why the world seems to still crash in on you. And I think everyone has asked themselves this question, like, what did I do to deserve this? And, A Serious Man takes on those questions in, really a darkly comedic way. Michael Stuhlbarg is just phenomenal in this movie.
Yeah.
He's so complex. He's complex in the way he reacts to things.
Yeah.
So the premise is this, it is 1967 and Larry Gopnik, a physics professor at a quiet Midwestern university, has been informed by his wife Judith that she is leaving him. She has fallen in love with one of his more pompous acquaintances, Cy Abelman, who, sleeper pick. Cy Abelman might be one of the greatest villains in cinema history.
Well, his wife's barely cold.
Yeah, his wife's barely cold, and so many quotable lines that should be quoted more. Like if people had actually seen this movie, I would really appreciate it. Just, like I would hear just some random line from A Serious Man on the street. I would freak out. I'd be like, oh my God. The other thing is that the movie is so well paced. It is 105 minutes, which is literally, I consider it to be the perfect runtime for a movie. An hour 45 is just perfect.
Yeah.
So, that's my thoughts. Ugh.
I'm not as high on A Serious Man as you are, but it is very good. And shout out to Minnesota. So there we go.
Yes, we are from Minnesota. Hope you couldn't tell by the accent.
Yeah. Seriously. So my number 4, and we'll take a quick break again after my number 4. And actually, we won't even really talk about this because I know Sam has extensive thoughts on this, as it will appear on his list as well. But my number 4 is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest with Jack Nicholson. And I'll just leave it at that. I love this movie so much. It's so good. As we were saying, it's so well paced. It's so entertaining. But we'll get into that later. And we'll just be back in just a minute for our top 3, and then we'll just hit a recommend, and then we'll get out of here. All right, we'll see you in a bit.
All righty.
Okay, welcome back, everyone. Sam, let's just start with your number 3 right away. We just knocked out our honorable mentions and then 10 through 4, so let's start with your number 3 now.
All righty. So my number 3 is the first Jack Nicholson movie, obviously another Jack Nicholson movie to appear on this list. Chinatown, 1974.
It's crazy to think that he had Chinatown and Cuckoo's Nest back to back.
Yeah.
It's
Jack is so anyone who thinks that Jack Nicholson is a typecast obviously hasn't seen this movie, because he's not not like his crazy, unhinged self in this movie.
Yeah.
He's very down to earth. He's very bruised, very cynical. And the tagline for this movie actually is, you get tough, you get tender, you get close to each other. Maybe you even get close to the truth. So this movie is just brilliant. It follows a private eye slowly, just unraveling the pieces to this elaborate conspiracy by the LA city government in pre-World War II Los Angeles. And God, the cinematography is flawless.
It's so good.
It is the greatest It is the greatest screenplay ever written, I think. I own the screenplay by Robert Towne in paperback. And I'll just read it every once in a while, because get inspiration for good dialogue writing.
Yeah.
So that's all I really have to say about this movie.
It is very, very good. So my number 3, actually the second foreign language film to appear on my top 10. I don't think I mentioned it, but City of God is in Portuguese because it's in Brazil. My number 3 is a German movie. Not too long ago it was made. It won Best Foreign Language Film at the Oscars. And that's it's Land of Mine. And it might sound obscure, but it's basically it's kids, German boys that were in the war, in World War II, I should say, in World War II. And they've been captured by the Dutch. And the Germans, of course, laid thousands and millions of bombs and landmines in the Netherlands. And these boys that are anywhere from like 12 to 18 years old are tasked with cleaning up the beaches in the Netherlands before they can go home to Germany. And it's just such a brutal movie, because they're just kids, and it's dangerous work. I'll spoil it now. Some of them do die. It's such a brutal movie, and it's an unconventional war movie, but it's so good, and it is very short as well, which is always nice. It's only 100 minutes. It's so good. I know it does have subtitles. I know that's hard for some people, but if I can give a recommendation, this one would be it. I love this movie. Let's hear your number 2, Sam.
Yes. My number 2 is Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo.
Yep.
I do think this is his best movie. I think it edges out Psycho slightly, although I love Psycho. And really, the movie doesn't have much of a plot. I mean, most of it is James Stewart driving in a car, it feels like, but it's so engaging all the way through. And I love it. It asks questions. It raises questions about identity. At what line does your work become personal? Actually, Vertigo and Chinatown are both, companion films in that they're very much in the neo-noir kind of genre, and I absolutely love film noir. I love private eye films, and these two are the ones that really revolutionized what a detective movie should be, or reinvented a detective movie.
Absolutely.
So, Vertigo is my number 2.
Vertigo's great.
And not to mention, and how Hitchcock uses color.
I mean,
something to pay attention to if you ever feel the need to watch it.
So great, yeah. So my number 2, as I mentioned earlier, this is my favorite David Fincher film, and it's probably a little high, but I just find it's so fun to watch. It's so entertaining, and I can't help but put it here at 7.
Yes.
I mean, we mentioned Kevin Spacey earlier. I mean, this since his persona. I mean, a terrible person. I get it, but he's so good in this movie, even though he's not really in it that often. Or he's not in it much, but he's so good in this. It's basically Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman just trying to solve a series of murders, as the Kevin Spacey character is killing people who he believes are committing sin.
Yes.
So
and we should mention the thing that's brilliant about 7 is it doesn't even show Kevin Spacey's name in the opening credits.
No, it doesn't. So
he shows up. He shows up later in the film.
Yeah.
So that is important to note. But
yeah,
yes, brilliant movie. I think it is Fincher's best. I would agree with that.
Yeah, there's some people that are big Social Network fans, and Social Network is good, but I don't know.
It's not 7. It's not Fight Club,
Yeah. Okay, so 7. It's just 2 detectives trying to. It's pretty simple. 2 detectives trying to solve some murders. But I think Fincher is just such a storyteller that, I mean, he's just always brings a certain. He always elevates a movie. Like, I feel like if a movie is like a 3 star, like if he makes it, it's just going to be a 4. Like if anyone else did it, then it'd be like, why is that a thing? Like Girl with a Dragon Tattoo, like that movie would be awful if it not for Fincher.
Oh yeah, and Panic Room, same,
exactly.
Same
like just like they would be bad without him, and he's one of the best. I'm excited for Mank that's coming out this summer.
Yeah. Oh yes, and we're both huge Gary Oldman and David Fincher fans, so we're very excited for that. And it should be. Mank has a bit of an unconventional plot, like unconventional for Fincher. Not something he would usually direct.
This is not his movie. I'm curious. Like this is not like Fight Club, 7, Gone Girl. Like this is weird, uncharted territory for Fincher.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Well, like you said, you could give Fincher a script that a 10-year-old wrote,
and he'd turn it into something.
Make it incredible.
Yeah.
Yes.
Let's hear your number 1.
Brilliant movie.
As I spoiled earlier.
Nest, which he did allude to, but I appreciate that he didn't, go into detail because this, this was one of the first movies I watched when I was really getting into film, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to start knocking out a lot of these movies that people consider important. And, the tagline for this movie is, if he's crazy, what does that make you? And, I've spent a lot of time reflecting on that. For those of you who don't have an idea, it's about a convicted statutory rapist played by Jack Nicholson, who is basically acts up in prison. He acts mentally ill so he can get sent to this, I guess, mental institution where he assumes he'll have an easy going life, and he doesn't. He faces something much more subdued, but much more terrifying in his arch nemesis, Nurse Ratched.
And
it raises a lot of questions. Nurse Ratched might be the greatest villain.
Actually, she probably is. I hate her.
She probably is. And the problem is you don't know why you hate her.
Exactly.
You shouldn't cheer. You shouldn't cheer for R.P. McMurphy in this movie because he is a terrible person, but at the same time, he's doing good. So the movie tells you that people are complicated. It's the first movie I saw where I'm like, you know what? There's no real protagonist that I would be morally just to cheer for, but I want to cheer for Jack because, well, 1, he's my favorite actor, and 2, his character is, we're cheering for him in this sense because he's doing good for these other inmates in this hospital ward, even if he's a bad person. Bad people can do good things and vice versa. So,
and I have a question for you.
Is really important to me.
Is this on a supporting cast wise? Is this the best acted movie of all time on a supporting cast?
Oh yeah, well, I mean, I think so. I think the acting is really what sells this movie. Young Danny DeVito, I believe. I don't know if this was his first film role.
It'd be close.
But it was certainly very early on. He's kind of unrecognizable. So young Danny DeVito plays one of the inmates. Young Christopher Lloyd. I know this was his first.
I forget he's in this
film. Yeah, he is, and he also does not look recognizable in this movie. You think of Christopher Lloyd, you think of Back to the Future.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, his head shaved, and he's different. Scatman Crothers of Shining fame, Mr. What's his name in The Shining? I don't know.
Yeah, I can't remember either. But, I need to revisit that actually.
Plays Mr. Crothers or Mr. Turkle in this movie. So, and obviously, just very well made on all fronts.
Yeah,
Milos Forman. I actually read the novel, and it's one of those few instances where the movie took the novel's idea and made it better, more effective.
Yeah, that's fair. It's fair to say.
By Ken Kesey. So, I love this movie in every sense of the word.
Yeah, it's great. It's my number 4 as well. My number 4 as well. So my number 1, coming from my favorite director of all time, that being Quentin Tarantino. And this is not like a controversial take or anything like that. I'm not claiming to say something new here. This is charted territory, and that's Pulp Fiction. Yes. Pulp Fiction is a movie that I've seen more times than I have fingers and toes, times probably 3. It's so different and unique and weird, but oddly entertaining. And I'm not sure if this made it onto your honorable mentions list. If it didn't, then it was close. But it's so.
I think it should. I'll throw that in honorable mentions.
Okay. It's so unique, and it's quirky. It's a bunch of weird characters. The timeline is off, but I think that just as Tarantino puts it, when he's writing, he's a writer, director, producer. So he's one of the auteurs, as we like to say.
Yes.
As he said, he likes, when he's writing the screenplay, he likes to think he's writing a novel, and he can start in the middle, he can start at the beginning, he can start at the end, because it doesn't really matter as long as you tell the story at some point.
Right.
So that's just what makes Pulp Fiction so different, is that it jumps all over the board, and it might be a little confusing to start, but if you really break it down, you can get it. And then as each rewatch, you get a little bit more, and you put it together, and the puzzle pieces start to fit. But aside from the story, which is just so weird, I think it's dialogue wise, it's one of the better movies. It's so good. Like the character interactions, it feels so natural. But yet so man, who would say that? But yeah, that really does make sense type of thing. But I love Pulp Fiction. It's one of the greats. And this is so unfortunate that it does not have a Best Picture to its name because of a little man named Mr. Gump. But we're trying to move on from that.
Well, I don't think we'll ever recover. I mean, even if they gave it to Shawshank that year, we'd be like, okay.
Yeah,
maybe Pulp Fiction's a little too, brash and bold for the Academy. That's fair. But they gave it to Forrest Gump. We'll never recover from that.
It's such a Forrest Gump is. We'll do an episode sometime where we talk about hot takes, and that might make it on there.
I think we could rip on Forrest Gump for an hour. I think we've done it before.
Oh,
just talking at the
in school. Oh, absolutely.
Just pure hatred. And we should mention about Pulp Fiction too is that It is. I would say it's the most rewatchable movie of all time.
Yeah. Oh, it's so entertaining, and you can always, absolutely. There's a reason I've seen it that many times.
Rewinded it, and then just watched it again. You would get like a great experience.
Yeah.
Like you could watch it right back to back. Just new things to pick up every time.
Yeah.
New great lines, quotable line. Every line in that movie is quotable.
Gosh, yeah. I could talk about Pulp Fiction for days on end, but let's
he has.
Yeah, and I have. Let's kind of do something on this show where we each week we'll give a weekly recommend for the audience out there, whoever you are. Where we're just going to recommend anything we think that's relevant or what we like in the moment. And Sam, I kind of sprung this on you, but do you want me to go first, or are you ready to go for your recommend?
I need to think about it. I got two things.
Okay.
So I need to think about which one is more pertinent right now. So go ahead.
I'll go first then. So mine, although we've mentioned it already, I'm going to recommend an app, and that is Letterboxd. We use it all the time. I'm on it daily. I think it's a fun app that you can interact with your friends who also love movies. So I'm going to recommend Letterboxd, and that's on Android or iOS, or it's just it's a website as well. If you don't have anything like Android or iOS, so I'm going to recommend Letterboxd. Sam, what's your recommend?
Yeah. Hopefully we could get Letterboxd to sponsor us or something. Like
Wouldn't that be funny?
Like, hey, we're getting you free plugs, so
that's funny.
That might be a long shot. I don't know, but definitely Letterboxd is a must for a movie 21st century.
Yeah.
So for mine, I think what I'm going to do is, I have a favorite philosopher. His name is Albert Camus. He lived from 1913 to 1960, and he wrote quite a few books. I think The Stranger by him is the best book I've ever read. Absolutely life-changing in a lot of senses. But I listened to his audiobook recently, which is free on YouTube. You can look this up. And it's called The Plague. And it's all about a plague that sweeps a small town in the 40s. It is a novel, so it's fictional, but it says a lot about human nature and how humans react to things like this. And I obviously listened to it with the COVID crisis going on. And, I would listen to it as I walked over the past few weeks here. And, there's a lot of characters in there that give great insight on how humans react to things like this, this existential crisis. And it was really rewarding to listen to. So if you're looking for something to listen to, besides this podcast, obviously.
Yeah. I mean, that's number one.
I mean, why would you be listening to anything else?
Yeah.
But listen to The Plague by Albert Camus. It's on YouTube. It's absolutely brilliant.
Good recommend. I'll have to check that out, actually. So let's just quick wrap up. So I did recommend Letterboxd as my recommend. Sam, what's your username on Letterboxd so the viewers or the listeners can check you out?
Yeah, my name is SJDierberger on Letterboxd. My last name is very long in German, so DIERBERGER. So that if you want to find me, I'll have a picture of Jack Nicholson with a nose bandage, black and white, smiling creepily. So
there it is.
That's kind of my profile pic. And for you?
Mine is just Will Spalding. Simple as that, just like on the basketball. And mine is Mr. Samuel L. Jackson in Pulp Fiction. That's my
Jules
my
Winfield
profile.
looking
picture.
Just absolutely disgusted with something.
Well, he's about to kill Brad.
So yes. He's about to kill Brad. What are you gonna do?
Yeah. So check us out on that, and check us out at our Gmail. We set that up for anyone to email us in their opinions or thoughts on the show or what we can improve upon, and we'll read your email aloud for the rest of the viewer or audience. And that Gmail is just those.
We'd like to hear your takes.
And we'd love to read your top 10 as well. So definitely send that in. That's just at thosefilmnerds@gmail.com. Simple as that. Just the title of the podcast at gmail.com. So send in your emails, and we'll definitely read them out loud for everyone else to hear. We're excited to get this podcast underway. I definitely know I am. So with that being said, thank you for everyone for listening. We hope you have a great rest of your day, and we will sign off. And thank you, and
watch movies.
Bye.